Good evening, Professor Foley. This is Heather Hickson from your Capstone B497 class, section 13655. I am filming and submitting my lessons learned from our project and team assessment. Thank you. Today I will be doing 3 different assessments. The first is a role-based, the second is a team-based, and the third is an individual reflection. For each of the roles in this project, I will answer a couple of questions. And we actually had 5 different roles on our team because we had 5 different people. So we had myself, which was the client lead. We had Onyx, was the project manager. Toby, who was the marketing specialist. Darren, who was the finance specialist. And Alvaro, who was our operations specialist. And a lot of the other groups actually did not have an operations specialist to use. So that was helpful. Question number 1. What did you learn about the role? So for the client lead, the biggest thing that I learned was that I had to organize the agenda for and lead the meetings. And for a while, or until we started this project, I thought that that was going to be something that the project manager would do, but it makes sense that the client lead would do that. One thing that I learned about the project manager is that you really have to step up when some of your team falls short sometimes. And in our case, our final editor was Onyx and Toby. And as the project manager, Onyx was really wanted to make sure that everything sounded fluent and matched. And the next, for the marketing specialist, for our group in particular, we had a lot of marketing recommendations because Priscilla's underutilized that area. We also knew that they weren't necessarily as open to operations and operational changes as maybe things like finance recommendations of increasing their prices gradually, or being more willing to post on social media and offer promotions, and partnering with other local businesses. They expressed in one of our meetings that they did not want to have a general manager necessarily, and they did like to have the 2 distinctions between the OGs and the newbies. But we felt like a more structure could be helpful to them. So the biggest thing I learned about our roles is that they change depending on the scope of the project and also depending on the clients themselves. I was worried in the beginning that Shannon may be a little difficult to get a hold of, but she actually wasn't. So that was very helpful and we really appreciated it. Question 2. What 3 common challenges did you identify? And I'm going to identify some for specific roles. For me personally, being the client lead, I can be shy sometimes, and it takes a little bit for me to warm up and get to know people and be willing and ready to volunteer for things. So that was one thing that was a challenge for me in the beginning, especially, like I said, when I learned that I had to lead the meetings. So that was, it took a minute for me to get over that. The second challenge that we identified fairly quickly is that for an operations specialist, having limited experiences and not being in that field on like a daily basis and really living in those situations, it's hard to give advice and structure ideas to a company who's been in business for a while. So not having the daily experiences of real life business, I feel like held us back a little bit. I think the third biggest challenge that was identified was how we as a team could come together time-wise with our differing schedules, and knowing that I had a vacation scheduled and Onyx had a couple of work-related events, and Alvaro also had a vacation scheduled, made it we were worried about finding enough time where everybody could get together. However, we found that we were all available late at night and evening and via text and phone call. So something that we thought would be a challenge actually wasn't a challenge at all, because we never really had a hard time getting a hold of anybody, any of our teammates, or even Mark and Shannon when I needed to ask them for questions or additional information and to schedule meetings. Question number 3. What tool, knowledge, or assistance would have helped? I think in our situation, just having more everyday experience and real life in these kind of jobs would help. A lot of us relate to what needs to be done, especially when it comes to operations and systems management. Those things in theory and on paper seem great, and then when you go to put them into practice, sometimes you meet hesitation or you just find unexpected kinks. So it takes a little while to be able to figure out how to overcome those kinds of things. I'm going to reflect on the project outcomes. I was satisfied very much with our report. I wish that our video presentation was a little cleaner and a little more rehearsed, but we actually did spend hours on it. I'm going to capture what works, what challenges we encountered, and any ideas for improvement. I think that asking maybe former students to give some advice for how new students coming in could possibly handle clients or the report or the class in general might help. Challenges we encountered. Honestly, this was one of the best groups that I've had working together in a while. So that was very nice and very much appreciated. And apply. What do I think you could apply for future capstone courses? Like I said, maybe just a little advice from former students to new students, any like tips or tricks or anything like that. And personally, I will apply this to my future development because, like I said, it has restored my faith in teams a little bit. I had quite a few good teams this year, and I had one really bad team, but that's okay too. Next up, we're going to talk about the team roles, which are team roles, client engagement, consulting process, and the deliverables section. First up, we're going to talk about team roles and team formation, also project planning. So our team was pre-formed and picked by you, Professor Foley. I did feel that everyone in my group was assigned to a role that suited them very well, and we all fulfilled those roles really, really well. Project planning went really smoothly. We met over Zoom in the beginning, and we all agreed to do 1 or 2 different types of analysis and then use that in our paper, and discussed on Zoom and via text what our thoughts and feelings were. So we planned different stages of the project, and we all edited and read the paper, the project overall, each submission and round. Next up, we'll talk about client engagement, client intake, and the client meetings. I found that the client intake meeting with Mark and Shannon was really helpful, really beneficial, and very professional on all sides. It was very easy to have meetings with them. They were always available by email or text if we had any additional questions or concerns. There was some times where maybe I felt we could have had a little bit more communication. As we mentioned one time in class, they had an offer from the Burbank Airport to open possibly a stand there, but the deadline was too soon for them. and it maybe could have been something that we could have helped them with, possibly. Next up, we're going to talk about the consulting process, the assessment, analysis, and findings and recommendations of our reports. So we used a couple of different types of analysis, some of which I was not familiar with, like the Ansoff matrix. I'd used the SWOT analysis in our marketing class the semester before, but I liked the gap analysis, and visually some of the graphs that we learned to use were really good. I thought that our analysis and findings and recommendations weren't really that surprising or a stretch for our team to find. I wish that we had maybe found a little more creative solutions, like I said, with the timed parking and stuff, but it was just not something that the client expressed real interest in or that we felt would be worthwhile to pursue time-wise. And lastly, we'll be talking about the deliverables themselves, the report, and the final presentation. I felt that our report was very well organized and made sense and flowed very nicely. I also feel like it had a lot of information that Mark and Shannon could use and would be able to understand. I felt like our presentation, even though we practiced a lot, I feel like maybe it could have been better if we had done it in person together. Overall, I'm really happy with everything that we did and everything that we learned and how well we worked together as a team. Question number 1. Identify at least one thing that worked well per each area. The first area, team formation and rules project planning. One thing that worked really well for us was everybody being open even till late night meetings at 10:30, just being able to do their parts and completing them when they needed to be done. For client engagement, one thing that was done well was we made really clear and precise agendas when we had our meetings with Mark and Shannon. And I think that kept us on track and kept them from maybe flowing into other areas of conversation that were not as beneficial during our meetings. For the consulting process, one thing that we did well was covering a large basis to get a very well-rounded picture with a lot of information for them in their business. I was really surprised by how much they already knew about their competitors, which they hadn't let us know before. So that was very eye-opening. And then one thing that I think we did really well and that worked for the deliverables and the report was having somebody read at the very end and make sure that it all flowed in the same tone to make it more united. Instead of just sounding like 5 different people wrote it, it sounded like one voice wrote it, which is very important. Question number 2. Identify at least one challenge per area. For our first area, project planning, one challenge that we had was really in the beginning, we were working backwards and we were coming up with recommendations rather than doing the research and starting from the beginning. So we had to take a step back and really listen to what we needed to do and how to do it. For client engagement, one challenge was maybe getting our meetings with Mark and Shannon. The second one was really short. And at the very end of it, Mark was walking in to join the meeting. And I think that maybe if we had stayed with a little longer and talked to him, we could have got some more information. So being at the whim of the client is something to take into consideration. And then for the consulting process, one challenge was being just fairly new to this and not knowing the best way to approach the situation, how to handle the research and everything. And then one challenge for our presentation is just not always having the best space and area to record and then needing to edit and reshoot when needed. So just being patient through the process. And now we are at our final part of our interview, the individual assessment. Question number 1. What is your biggest takeaway from the course and what was most meaningful for you? For me, my biggest takeaway from this course is that I have no desire at all to do anything in a consulting capacity in this area or form. What was most meaningful for me was, like I said, working on a really good team with people who interacted and did their work on time when they were supposed to. I truly believe that this class and your structure is the only reason that I was able, along with Toby, to pass our 491 class. So thank you again for that. Question number 2. What does it mean for you to reach this milestone? For me, reaching this milestone means that I get to graduate this semester, and after 2 years, I'm done with school, and it's a lot, and I'm very happy. Question number 3. Identify 2 team members who contributed most to your learning. So the 2 team members who contributed most to my learning were Toby, which is not surprising because he's helped me in so many of my classes at this point. I hope that I've made a friend for a long time. And he's shown me that you can just be resilient and hardworking, and even though you can be busy, but still take time and do things as you need to do. And the second person is Onyx for the same reason. You can have he's proof that you can have a 60 plus hour a week job and be in charge of something, but still, do your assignments when you're supposed to and turn things in and be a great leader and calm and focused. And so I wanted to say thank you for the opportunity to have this class, and good luck. Thanks.